The true extent of Melbourne's crime crisis has been laid bare, with police admitting the crime rate is the worst ever.
A small town, a series of mysterious disappearances, and one criminal mastermind.
Stalking her for days, planning his attack, and then rehearsing her murder.
Will Detective Sarah Lyle catch the elusive outlaw before it's too late?
Now to breaking news out of London. And Heathrow Airport has been shut down for 24 hours after a huge fire at a nearby electrical substation. The closure at Europe's busiest airport is expected to cause ripple effects for passengers across the globe.
Don't miss the shocking twists and high-stakes chase that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Stay tuned for the gripping truth. The mysterious disappearances. In July 2024, the small town of Riverton was shaken by a series of strange disappearances. It all began with Emily Parker, a local teacher, who vanished without a trace one quiet Wednesday evening. No signs of struggle, no ransom note, just an empty house. Her family and friends were left in a state of disbelief, wondering how someone so close could just disappear. As days went by, the town was rocked by more vanishings. The next was David Timmons, a popular mechanic who disappeared on July 10th. The pattern seemed eerily similar, leaving the authorities scrambling for answers. Was it random? Or was someone targeting the town? Local law enforcement was on edge, struggling to connect the dots. It wasn't long before rumors began to swirl. Was there an unseen hand behind these vanishings, or was this a string of coincidences? Each disappearance felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved, and the town's residents feared they might never know the truth. A trail of clues. As the disappearances continued, a breakthrough came on July 15th, 2024, when a piece of evidence was found near the spot where David Timmons had last been seen. It was a small, crumpled note tucked into a tree's hollow. The note was simple, containing just one line: "I know where you are." The authorities were puzzled. Who had written it? And more importantly, who was it for? Detective Sarah Lyle, known for her keen eye, immediately took the lead in the investigation. She believed that this clue might not just be a random message. It could be a deliberate communication from the criminal. Soon, more clues began to surface. A torn piece of fabric was found near Emily Parker's last known location, matching the material of her coat. And, on July 18th, a faint footprint was found near a riverbank. These clues, though small, seemed to be building a trail. The town now had a lead, but it was still unclear where it would lead. Detective Lyle had a hunch. The criminal was leaving behind a trail to toy with them. But one thing was for sure: they were getting closer to the truth. Profiling the suspect. By July 22nd, 2024, the investigation into the disappearances had reached a critical point. Detective Sarah Lyle and her team had gathered enough evidence to create a psychological profile of the suspect. It became clear that the criminal was not acting on impulse, but was methodical and calculated, carefully planning each move. The profile suggested that the suspect was someone who had intimate knowledge of Riverton. The careful manner in which the disappearances were executed indicated that this was not a random act, but something more personal. The criminal appeared to be targeting people who were well known in the community, making it even more chilling. Lyle speculated that the person might have a history of feeling overlooked or rejected, possibly with ties to the victims in some way. The careful nature of the crimes pointed to a highly intelligent individual, someone who could blend in and evade detection. This insight shifted the focus of the investigation from an outsider to someone possibly embedded within the town, making the search even more urgent. The unseen connection. As the investigation progressed into August 2024, Detective Sarah Lyle began to notice an unsettling pattern. Though each victim seemed to have led separate lives, there was something connecting them beneath the surface. Emily Parker, the teacher, had once tutored children in a local after-school program. David Timmons, the mechanic, had repaired the cars of many townspeople, including the local school staff. Digging deeper, Lyle discovered that all the victims had crossed paths in ways no one had remembered, conversations, small favors, shared moments that seemed insignificant at the time. The realization hit her. These were not random victims. The criminal was targeting those who had some form of relationship, however small, with the town's core. The next discovery came on August 5th, when a former colleague of Emily Parker came forward, revealing a strange encounter she had had with a man she couldn't quite place. This revelation linked the victims even further, suggesting that the criminal had been watching them for longer than anyone had imagined. The connection was subtle, but now the pieces were falling into place. Each person had unknowingly left a mark, and that mark was what had sealed their fate. The chase begins. By August 10th, 2024, Detective Sarah Lyle and her team were on high alert. The unsettling connections between the victims had given them a clearer picture of the criminal's methods, but it also meant they were in a dangerous race against time. The criminal was no longer hiding in the shadows. They were moving fast, and Lyle was determined to catch up. A break came when a local teenager, Jack Harris, reported seeing a figure lurking near the riverbank, the same area where the footprint had been found. Lyle quickly launched a search of the area, combing through every inch of the river's edge. The search, however, turned up nothing. No new clues, no sign of the criminal. As days passed, the frustration grew. The criminal seemed to be one step ahead, always evading capture with alarming precision. On August 14th, a new disappearance occurred, this time a local baker named Maggie Scott. The town was on edge, with everyone suspecting that the outlaw was playing a twisted game. Each failed attempt to corner the criminal only made Lyle more determined. This was no longer just an investigation. It had become a high-stakes chase. The outlaw was taunting them, and Lyle knew they had to outsmart the criminal before another life was lost. Twists and turns. By August 20th, 2024, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Detective Sarah Lyle had thought the case was progressing smoothly, but new developments shook the team. A witness, Tommy Richards, came forward claiming to have seen a car near Maggie Scott's bakery on the night she disappeared. However, the description of the car didn't match any known vehicles in the area. Later, another lead emerged. A mysterious phone call made from a public payphone. The voice on the other end was distorted, but it hinted at a much larger network behind the disappearances. Deep cover operations. By August 25th, 2024, Detective Sarah Lyle realized they needed to take more drastic measures. To catch the criminal, they decided to go undercover. Officer Jake Morrison volunteered for the mission, blending into the local community as a mechanic. His goal was to gather information from inside the network, hoping to get closer to the elusive criminal. Days later, Morrison overheard a conversation at a local bar about someone who knew the missing victims personally. The lead was promising. The breakthrough. On September 1st, 2024, a major breakthrough came when Detective Sarah Lyle received a call from Officer Jake Morrison. He had gained the trust of a key informant who claimed to know the criminal's identity. The informant, Natalie Walker, had worked with the victims years ago and mentioned a man named Ethan Cole, a former resident with a troubled past. Lyle immediately launched a background check on Ethan Cole. His criminal record was shocking. This was the lead they needed to finally catch the elusive outlaw. Confrontation at dusk. On the evening of September 10th, 2024, Detective Sarah Lyle and her team tracked Ethan Cole to an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. As dusk settled, they surrounded the building, preparing for a confrontation. The tension was thick, knowing this could end in a standoff. Inside, Cole was waiting, calm yet dangerous. The moment they made their move, he bolted, leading to a tense chase through the dark streets. After a heart-pounding pursuit, Lyle cornered him in a dead-end alley. The hunt was finally over. Justice served. The dust had settled by September 20th, 2024, and Riverton was slowly beginning to heal from the shock of the past few months. The criminal, now in custody, was revealed to be Evan Carter, a quiet and unassuming local man who had lived in town for years. His carefully constructed facade had fooled everyone, even those closest to him. The shock of his identity sent ripples through the community. How could someone so familiar have harbored such dark intentions? Detective Sarah Lyle took a moment to reflect on the investigation's toll. The case had been a relentless pursuit, one that had tested the limits of patience and resolve. The fear that gripped the town, the long nights of uncertainty, had finally come to an end. While it wasn't easy to accept that the criminal had been so embedded in their lives, justice had been served. The victims' families could finally begin to heal. For Lyle, the closure was bittersweet. She had led the team to success, but the scars of the investigation would remain. The town was safe once again, but the memory of what happened would linger for a long time. As the days went by, life in Riverton slowly returned to normal, but the sense of unity and resilience among its people grew stronger. The events had forever changed them, but they now stood together, knowing they had survived the darkness. Riverton, though scarred, would always remember the strength it found in the face of terror. The case is closed, but the real question is, what happens next? Don't miss our next video, The Night That Changed Everything, a true crime investigation. Subscribe now and be the first to uncover the truth. You won't want to miss a single moment of this thrilling journey.